Welcome back to Into the Fray. On this episode today, you'll be listening to an older conversation that we had with COBIE Tomlinson. Now, this conversation was from back in, I don't know, like December or November of last year, somewhere around that time. Anyways, you may have heard it before. The episode did do good on listens, but as I told you last week, COBIE was supposed to come on again and us have a conversation, continuing the conversation me and Robbie had about education, kind of dive more into the philosophy behind education, and specifically the argument behind why you should give your kid a Christian education. Well, after me and COBIE both listening back to the episode, we decided that we wanted to re-record and have the conversation again, hit on some different points that we didn't catch on the last recording. And so we are planning on re-recording very, very soon. Hopefully it'll be out within the next month or so. But with saying that, I did think it'd be a good idea to revisit the old COBIE episode that I recorded late last year, because in that episode, the audio's off. It wasn't that good. And I hated that. One of the mics went out. Sometimes, I'm such a noob when it comes to editing all this and recording these podcasts. So that's just on me. And I honestly, when it happened the first time, I got to his house and I hit record and I started panicking because I knew something was wrong. I just didn't know what. And I tried everything I knew how to do to fix it, and it wasn't working. It was the first time I ever recorded away from the studio that we have at the church. But again, the episode came out. Now I have a little bit more information on how to fix things like what had happened. I did it with the Miss Morgan episode. And so I thought it'd be a good idea to revisit COBIE's episode, edit it up, fix the audio quality, and re-release it so that you can still hear from COBIE, but enter his mind on a kind of the same topic, but in a little bit of a different area. Specifically, in this episode, he talks more about discipleship within the local church and in families, and specifically how he discipled me and really shaped a lot of why I interact with my faith the way I do today. COBIE is the youth pastor who came into my life and introduced me to Jesus, taught me how to read my Bible, taught me to pray, taught me the importance of intentionality with the scriptures and taking your faith seriously. And he got me into reading books, as you know, I love doing. So I really hope you just enjoy this episode, and yeah, subscribe, share it with a friend, and be looking forward to more episodes to come, especially with a new format that we have coming up very, very soon. Thank you.
I mean, conversational dynamics are always an interesting thing. I mean, I've listened to podcasts before that I'm like, this is going to be the best podcast that I've ever listened to because these are two very like interesting people.
Yeah.
And then it's like, wow, it was really not engaging, you know. And I mean, you throw in like different levels of like comfort and anxiety, you know. Like if I didn't know you, I would be like, I've had to be on the radio a few times. With the school, you know, and including like this past January, talking about school choice and
this is actually
things.
really good.
I know. I make a really freaking good cup of coffee. Yeah,
But you said half caffeine, and I was like, oh God.
Yeah, I go heavy. I go a little hard on the coffee, knowing that it's half calf, because I was talking to my doctor, and you know, during the school year, I will easily drink about 12 or 14 cups of coffee a day, you know, and it's not even this like I'm dragging. It's just like when I'm doing something at the school, I just want to have a cup of coffee.
Yeah,
you know,
it's a vibe.
Yeah, it's exactly right. You know, I can't use that phrase because I've exited. You know, any there's no more youth left here. But yes, it is a vibe. Reading a book, meeting with teachers, visiting classrooms, hammering out emails. Like, I just like coffee, you know. And the doctor suggested, and my parents were suggesting, they were like, you should switch to half calf. And so in my mind, I'm like, I'm good for 24 cups of coffee if they're half calf, because that's basically like the 12. You know what I mean? It's like a bunch of half cups of coffee. You know, but I mean, I've like dramatically like tried to decrease my coffee intake, and I don't know. I'm naturally a jittery person, so I don't know if it's helping. But the flavor, is now something I will never live a lie of drinking decaf coffee. Yeah, like people who do that, I mean, that's fine. You do what you want with your life, but there is something probably wrong with you on a fundamental level that you can. It's kind of like Ron Swanson talked about soy milk being milk that's lying about. It's something lying about being milk, you know. It's like if somebody told me all they had was decaf, I'm like, why are we drinking this, you know? So but going back to the no, it's fine. I'm all about that.
I was very shocked.
I don't know. I think like my anxiety was high when I was on the radio, you know. I don't like being in front of a camera. I don't like, in a lot of ways, I'm not comfortable being known. And I think a lot of people feel that way, you know. And sometimes that can manifest with like rigidity in a conversation. Like maybe they reluctantly agreed to do an interview, and then they're like, their nervousness saps their ability to have a dynamic conversation, you know. Or, and I don't know anything about that lady, a lot of people, all of us struggle with authenticity, you know. And I think every person wants to give off some form of I've got things under control. Like, like things are pretty good, you know, even when they're not. I mean, it's one of the reasons, like, if somebody asks me, and it depends on how they ask me, if they're like, you doing okay? I'm immediately like, why don't you get off my case? Like, you know what like they say it like that, like, you doing okay? And I'm like, I was until you asked that, you know.
I that all the time.
Yeah. Why don't you ask me how I'm doing like a normal human being instead of sending me into an anxiety attack, you know?
Your dad would do that sometimes.
And
then like the whole rest of the day, I'm just like in my head, like, what did there was one day I literally just walked into the shop. Like, I'd only been there for 5 seconds. And he has this question immediately was, you okay? And I was just like, I was having a great morning, the best morning, until you asked that.
I'm like, you got me messed up now, man.
Gosh.
Yep, I know that feeling, but like, I don't know, like, this is why I had the conversation that I had with you on the phone before agreeing to this. Is like, I want to talk about all of these things, but like, and I mean, knowing you, I know you didn't expect me to be like, come on as an expert. You know me too well to know that I'm not an expert, but like, the older that I've gotten, the more that aspect of like just being sometimes to a fault raw and like authentic, of just being like, you know, sometimes as a parent I literally hate myself, like, you know, and like unpacking like, here that, you know, Ezra is he's me, and therefore we hate each other sometimes. You know, and that junk's hard, you know, and then you add to that like the different personas people have to put on. Like, people see me at the school as Mr. Tomlinson, and I have to like, in some ways, play this actor of like, I never get frustrated, and
that's kind of been the struggle with the podcast, and even being like a leader at the church, is I feel like just because I've seen so many church leaders fall, and it comes out that like they have this secret life that you didn't know about. It's made me be like, well, then I'll just let everybody know exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
Not like every detail, but
yeah,
I'll keep a lot of the cards on the table and try to be very transparent. And but then there's also the part of me that's like, I only have social media because during COVID that was the only way I could keep in contact with the church, and I don't want to be on social media.
Yeah,
I didn't want to do the podcast. Robbie asked me to do. He kind of positioned me to where I'm doing the podcast. I'm like, well, okay, I'm doing the podcast.
Here we are. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a struggle because it's become less of a struggle the more I've done it, because the more I just understood kind of where I'm at, and it's like if someone has a problem with it, deal with it. But I've tried to just be the older I get, I feel like a lot of my views have changed, and so I've become less okay with trying to be an expert on things, because I'm like, well, I thought I was an expert before, and I wasn't.
Yep.
So I'm gonna guard against that and kind of. I don't mind sharing my opinions, but I'm not gonna come into the conversation with like, this is matter of fact how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that makes a lot of people uncomfortable now, because I'm way more okay with things being complicated and chaotic than I probably used to be. Yeah. Used to be, it was like Reformed theology, it was like, it's got to line up perfectly. Yep. And now I'm like, nah. Yeah. I don't understand. Like, yeah. I know I can understand why people are as Reformed as they are. Like, logically, I think it makes sense. But to me, I don't see it the same way I used to. Yeah. And I see, it's like, how I described it to some of the people at the church is like, I'm okay listening to people who aren't Reformed or aren't Baptist or whatever, or even like your more liberal theologians, not because I think they're all right about everything, but it's like sometimes I feel like we're at the dinner table and it's like the father is at the top of the table, and we're just looking at it from two different angles, and I see him and he's got a mole on like the right side of his face, but he doesn't have a mole on the left side of his face, and so the person on the left side's like, he doesn't have moles. I'm like, no, he has a mole. And it's like, well, you gotta, that's like the importance of like trying to get the full perspective of and trying to like read my Bible with people who are different too. Yeah. And just being like, I don't know. I my faith is way more so of like it's like just a mess of a bunch of different ideas, and trying to make them work together is just like, I don't know. Yeah. I can't do that.
Yeah. I think working at the school for me, I mean, it's changed my life in a lot of ways. Like, some of the best years of my life have been at that school, and two of the worst years of my life have been at that school. You know, some of the worst years, some of it was self-inflicted, some of it was out of my control, you know. So, I mean, no surprise, the two worst years are like 2020 through the end of 2021. Yeah. So, I mean, you know,
it's understandable.
Yeah, not alone in that. I'm like, what the heck am I doing? But like, the most valuable thing is, I mean, literally, I've got almost every denomination represented. Yeah. And not only that, because our student population is not only denominationally diverse, but it's like racially, culturally, politically diverse. Yeah. All of the messiness that goes with that is like in the forefront. Like, I mean, I'm having to think through not only the differences that might come up with some of the churches that we partner with believe women could be pastors.
Yeah.
And some of my students struggle with the national anthem or with the pledge, you know. And I've got teachers looking at me like, do I make them say it? Or, and living in that tension where, I try to set things up to where people can be who they are in the right way. There's people can be who they are. They can be authentic. And there have been a lot of conversations where I'm like, I said diversity is a hijacked word, but I believe it's a biblical value. You look at the picture of our eternal state or whatever, every tribe, every tongue, all peoples, all languages, like all of that sort of stuff. Like, diversity is a part of God's plan, and what we are more comfortable with is homogeneity, like sameness. Like, I'm real comfortable being around people that only agree with me, but it's not as it's not as fun either. Like, I've told my teachers, I'm like, diversity is a value that we have to uphold, and almost by design, it's uncomfortable and complicated sometimes.
But isn't that like the thing that it kind of convicted me of is the more I kind of diversified my life, the more I had to come to terms with the fact that I wanted to be in control. And I had this in a sense, I wanted to be God. I want you to fit exactly. I want you to be in my image. And that was like that was a huge thing of having to let go of being like, you'll never be able to make someone to your image, because your image is always going to change. I remember I have a friend who I always felt like they wanted me to be. They had these expectations of what they wanted me to be, and I would try to meet them. And then they change, and I'd be like, I just met them.
Like,
Can we just stay with this? And I found that I was doing that too. I had expectations for people of what I wanted them to be, and how I wanted them to believe, how I wanted them to get to their beliefs. And it just became a thing of like, that's not how God works with you.
Thank God.
Like, it's crazy sometimes for me to think back of like when I was 16 and 18, I thought I had God figured out. And now I'm like, 16, 18-year-old Austin might think 24-year-old Austin's a heretic. But for 24-year-old Austin, it's probably way closer to Jesus than the 16, 18-year-old Austin. Because and it's again this phrase I hate, but it's like, I feel like it does capture it. Of like, life's this journey with God, and it's okay. Like, you're not supposed to reach the destination quite yet. You're gonna have things that aren't picture perfect.
It's I don't know. We're comfortable with neat boxes and all of that, and like, I don't know. I was talking to somebody the other day, and I'm going to reference this exact conversation because it was in the context of American history, and I was telling him, if like leftist people who are hypercritical of America think that I'm a like diehard nationalist, like red, white, and blue, like these, if they think that about me, and if the people who are like God and country, like the flag draped over the cross, like if the people who are actual crazy like nationalist kind of thing, if they think that I'm a leftist, like if the opposite sides think that I'm crazy, like I'm probably in a sweet spot. And if like people who are really rigid think that I'm liberal.
Yeah.
And if liberal people think that I'm really rigid, like, that's a spot that I'm comfortable.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not comfortable, but I feel like that's a good balance.
Yeah.
You know, to have. And there were a lot of years of my life where that, you know, that wouldn't have been the case. You know, it's just like, I don't know. I think Reformed theology is particularly given to, like.
Do you feel like Mark Driscoll said this when he made this comment? There's a whole lot you can unpack, but he said that the Young Restless Reform movement is a bunch of people with like daddy wounds, and they're just trying to find. They're just trying to feel those wounds by being in this really locked in tribe and all that stuff. Sometimes I wonder that of like. Maybe it's not daddy wounds per se, but like I feel like a lot of Reformed people were somehow an outcast. Granted, like I feel like every tribe feels that way.
Yeah.
Before they become part of the tribe, but like Reformed people of like, or the Young Restless Reform group specifically, they for sure were the outcasts in the church, and so when they found these beautiful truths, they locked in and they're like, this is our tribe, this is our identity, and we're just gonna press deeper and deeper, and we're gonna become more like build the walls up to kind of protect ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, I think everybody's like wounded in some way, you know, in like the psychology or whatever you want to say about like how that manifests theologically and all of that. I'm not sure, you know, because people are complicated. I definitely resonate with like what you were saying of like people who were like getting into Reformed theology in some ways. Like it became trendy, but there was a time in which it wasn't. You know, and with the stuff that I was always interested in, like skateboarding and like punk music, and like it was always like I always had there was a real appeal to me of like just contrarianism, you know, probably bordering on, it was almost like as close to anti-authoritarianism as I could get without being disobedient to the Lord. You know what I mean? I'm like right there at the edge, you know, and in some ways like Reformed theology kind of felt that way for me, but it really was like coupled with like when I was in college, like feeling like for the first time, you know, those years late high school where I was really trying to let God's word like just say what it says and like believe it, you know. And then I was ending up listening to people who tended to be more reformed, you know, and Mark Driscoll was I mean I don't listen to him much now, but I mean he was one of the most influential
it's hard to
people.
shake him off of you.
There's a sermon that he preached when Mars Hill was in its heyday, and this was, I think I listened to this in 2010, and it was called Ministry Marriages, and I still think about that sermon, because he went through all of these people throughout church history who were supposed spiritual giants, like he talked about A.W. Tozer, and he talked about John Wesley. He talked about some of the missionaries that people laud as like, look at all the sacrifice they made for the gospel, and he highlighted the fact that they neglected their family and neglected their children. And I remember him saying that your family, you should not sacrifice your family on the altar of ministry. You know, and so he was talking about like the danger for people who serve in any form of ministry and prioritizing ministry over their family and being encouraged in that in many ways and looked at as like, look how selfless they are. Meanwhile, like your most important mission field is being neglected and your children are suffering, you know, your
Yeah.
wife is suffering. If I could go back and get that sermon, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, I listened to that thing on an iPod, and you know, I was driving home from Liberty, listening to that sermon. That was also during the time. I remember driving down the road, and I was listening to his infamous "How dare you?"
Yeah.
Who do you think you are, sir? I was like, what? You know, I was like, I could not believe what I was listening to. You know, so I mean, all of that, like,
Yeah.
you know, there was good, but there's definitely some rough, you know,
Yeah.
bad parts that I had to.
One of the things that, actually, I know I got some of it from you, of my teaching style, specifically with our youth group. It very much is a rip off of you.
Mm.
But growing up with Mark Driscoll, too, of someone who takes the word very seriously. And, I mean, he was tackling things in the culture, but, like, he had no problem if he went 30 minutes over. And you're gonna walk through verse by verse, but you're gonna do it in this way that's really challenging. And I still feel like his teaching style is probably the thing I took away the most.
Yeah.
I can't not think that way.
Yeah.
It's like granted, I was also like 13 when I was listening to him.
Mm-hmm.
And so as my brain's still developing and all, like, I'm listening to Mark Driscoll and how he explains things. I'm like, this is how I'm gonna start explaining things.
Yeah.
That's how I'm gonna think through things.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
but yeah.
You know, it was interesting, and I would make an assumption, knowing you. Did you like devour the Rise and Fall of Mars Hill?
Oh, I still re-listen to it.
Yeah,
all the time.
I've intended on going back through, man. There were moments as I was listening to that, and I know this is stupid in some ways because I wasn't a part of that church, but like that church, everything about. I remember building the website for Southside, trying to be an exact rip-off of the Resurgence. All I wanted it to look like was the Resurgence, you know. But there were times when I was listening to that podcast, I'm like pressure washing my parents' house listening to it, and I'm like emotional, you know, because they did this. That dude,
Mike
he
Foster.
scripted, you know, and when I say scripted, like the way that he told that story actually captured the way that I felt when I felt like I was a part of something, you know, when Mars Hill was in its high, and it even reminded me of some of the things that I loved about Mark Driscoll, you know, and I'm like, I mean, he went off the deep end, but
it made me want to go back and listen to him again, but also be like, no, I don't need to.
Yeah, just some of his coarseness, which I know is a controversial thing. You know, the thought or the picture of, and I was at that birthday dinner last night, and somebody was talking about their husband went on a men's retreat, and I would have been like, it's called a men's advance because men don't retreat, you know. I freaking love that, you know. Or they have that men's advance, and they're giving all of the men rocks back. Yeah, they're giving you your balls back, you know. And I'm like, hey, I probably shouldn't say that on this, but
it's good.
You know? It's but good. Like, I remember like listening to that, and I'm like, heck yeah, we need to do that. Like, you know, and
that's just the struggle, because I'm still very much my biggest the guy I look up to the most is Mr. Rogers. Yeah, because I want to be the most loving person people have ever met. Mm-hmm. I think what he did was amazing. Mm-hmm. But I'm also really like drawn to your Jordan Petersons, your Joe Rogans, Mark Driscoll still of like men need to toughen up and take responsibility. Like, I still like that. If there's the one thing that really makes, I work on my anger a lot, but the one thing that really still pisses me off is walking through situations with like guys my age, and then watching them like abandon their baby mama. I'm just like, that's when it's like the how dare you wants to come out. Exactly. And it's that struggle of like, I can see where Mark Driscoll took things way too far. I think
Yeah.
he treated women terribly with some of his teachings. But then there's also a part of me that's like, yeah, but him calling me out on my laziness and my apathy and my softness in areas, like, I needed that.
Yeah.
Like, I needed someone to challenge my manhood, because I didn't know what it was like to be a man. Like, I didn't ever. One of the things I've always struggled with was the guys growing up in South Georgia. What you think of men, for me at least, was they got to go fishing, they hunt, they watch football. They're into all these like very like I don't know, traditionally manly things. And growing up, I was always like, I don't want to go hunt. I want to go draw a picture.
Yeah.
And so there's always a part of me that felt like I was like not qualified to be a man. But then Mark Driscoll comes in, he's like, that's not what manhood is. Manhood is you take responsibility, you get a job, and you love your wife and kids really well. And I was like, well, I can do that. You know?
That's exactly right. Remind me, don't let me fail to quote, and this will be the only time I quote Douglas Wilson, but I want to circle back to a Douglas Wilson quote, but like, I want to make sure that I say, like, I think we all struggle with balance. Like, every facet of our lives, I think there is an opportunity for you to be in a ditch, you know? And a lot of times we find ourselves like with the cruise control set at like 65, looking at all the people on the road, you know, like, what's wrong with y'all? Because we're like hammered into that ditch, you know, and we're comfortable in that ditch. But like, okay, there is an aspect of, you know, and it's present in church culture, it's present in just culture at large, of like self-esteemism and like this softness, like again going back to the Rise and Fall of Mars Hill, where they're talking about how he would make fun of Promise Keepers and how, you know, this guy would be like dressed in pastel colors and everybody would gather around and cry. Like, I don't want to be that, okay? I don't want to be, you know, I don't want to be effeminate. I don't want to be passive and all of these different things. But then there's also a problem on the other side where you're a bully, you know? I can't. I kind of lost my train of thought there for a second. But basically, there's a ditch on both sides of the road. And on the one hand, I want to be an emotionally sensitive, self-reflective person, you know, who is gentle with people. Okay, gentleness is probably the best word, or kind, you know, kind-hearted. And then there's the other side of me that I want to be tough. I want to be known as decisive. I want to be known as like, I want to be known as an intense guy, you know. And there's problems with both of those, you know. But I think there's a balance that's found in the Lord, you know, in the middle, you know. Two things, and then I'll stop. So you talk about wanting to be known as, and I can't remember how you put it, like the most loving person that people know. And ever since I read this biography of J.C. Ryle, he was like a bishop, Anglican bishop in the 1800s. He's an amazing man, very, very interesting guy. But there's a great biography written by Ian Murray called Prepared to Stand Alone. And long story short, Ryle was a godly man and very committed to loving the people in his local church. Lived during a time of a lot of compromise and a lot of heresy and theological, you know, for lack of a better word, liberalism. But people would describe him, and they would say that Ryle was the man who had granite convictions, but the heart of a child. And ever since I heard that, I'm like, that's what I want to be. Like, I want people to know that, like, on the things that matter the most, on the non-negotiables, like, I'm dying on those hills, you know, but that I would not be so dug in on, you know, I got to take a stand, I got to do this, that, and the other, that I wouldn't be so dug in there that I wouldn't be kind and gentle toward people, you know.
You think part of that is like, for me, I realized part of it was just like a fear of when I was die hard on like secondary issues.
Mm-hmm.
It was just maybe it goes back to that control thing of like, I was afraid of like what could happen.
Yeah.
And two, it was like this. I had this belief. I didn't realize it, but I'm afraid that your bad ideas about God or about how the church should be run or something like that are like secondary issues, could lead to something and it take over.
Yeah.
And kind of how we've approached the podcast and all is, and even in our youth group, because they bring a ton of crazy ideas.
Yeah.
Is being more confident in who God is and that the best idea will win. And like, you can walk into a room full of heretics and not be scared of. Sometimes when I would walk in before, it would be out of fear, and so out of fear I'd be very defensive, and I wouldn't be willing to listen, and I'm just ready to like hit all my points. Now it's like trying to take on the character of God, where it says he's slow to speak and quick to listen. And I don't think it's him being passive. I think it's he knows the outcome, and he knows what the truth is, and so he can walk into the room full of heretics, so to say, and he's like, tell me your ideas. Like, let's engage with them. You paint it out for me. I'm just going to ask some questions. Like, for me, that seems like way more fun too. I'm not as stressed or as anxious approaching the heresies like that. I don't know. I feel like I just went on a tangent, but yeah.
No. I think some of that connects back to as well. What is my faith actually in? You know? Because I think that sometimes having all of these questions buttoned down, you know, and like, I've got an answer for this, and I know where to go for that, and like, what we end up finding is that we might not realize it in the moment, but like, our faith is actually in this system that we've built up instead of like in the Lord who made heaven and earth, and you know, who is, you know, incomprehensible and big and all of these different things. And I think, like you said, sometimes that rigidity can come out of a place of fear, because we wonder if I hear this counterpoint that it's like a sweater that has a string that gets pulled, and then it keeps getting pulled, and then the sweater is gone. Like, you know, I think a lot of times when our faith is rooted in a system instead of in the Lord, and those are not always exclusive. Like,
I agree.
You know, and I think that God is a God of order. There, you know, the Bible's organized in a way where we can develop an understanding about specific things, you know, but like, I don't know, I think like you said, that sense of control, we like acting as if everything is way more buttoned up than it really is, and there are a lot of things that are far more open to, you know, let's say flexibility, you know, and definitely mystery, you know. I mean, I work with a bunch of charismatic people, you know, and you know, I work with, you know, Methodists, and I mean, we've had interesting conversations about topics like apostasy and you know, spiritual warfare and different things like that. And I don't know, I've just found a lot of value working at the school, being able to, because I do staff devotion on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I mean, typically, you know, we just read through a passage of scripture and I'll make some comments on it, but recently I've read selections to them from John Owen, the Puritan. I've read commentaries and stuff to them from Warren Wiersbe. I mean, like, it kind of ends up going all over the map, you know. And I'll end up trying to like incorporate, like, I've quoted E.M. Bounds, who's a famous Methodist, you know, just trying to like be conscious of my people, you know. For charismatic people, a lot of times I'll lean into somebody like Sam Storms or something like that, or, you know, we end up singing a lot of Sovereign Grace music, which is like Reformed charismatic, you know, and so like trying to exist in a bunch of different worlds has been, it's actually life-giving. It's not taxing, you know. It's one of my favorite parts of the job. I actually wouldn't want it, if I had the choice today to make Highland a Reformed school or a Baptist school, I wouldn't.
Do you feel pressure sometimes?
No, thankfully. You know, there were some things that needed to be refined as it related to the school's identity when I first got there, because like it was promoting itself as a non-denominational school, but it was definitely leaning hard into the charismatic realm. You know, there were some like classes that were teaching forms of prayer that are very particular to the charismatic church and stuff, and so like I had to adjust some of that, but like, because it was clear that I wasn't trying to make the school in my image, to use your phrase, and I was like, here's our statement of faith, like this is what we need to major on, like it actually takes the pressure off, you know. And I mean, people know where I'm at generally theologically, you know, and I feel like people can come in and they can be who they are, you know. And for 6 years it's been working really well, and the school board is really supportive in that regard. Like, they're not trying to turn it into a Baptist school or a Methodist school or whatever, you know. I mean, we've got a unique opportunity, and for me, I think about it with my kids, because Isaac isn't, you need to redact that. I have a son who has a name, who is in a grade, you know. Like,
I was like, what did you say?
Yeah. So Isaac's in second grade, and he, with our school being interdenominational, he will grow up with an opportunity and in an environment that a lot of, I would venture to say, a lot of people have not had that opportunity, which is Christians from diverse backgrounds working together and it actually working. You know? It helps that we're not a church, so we don't have like pews to argue over, or the color of carpet or style of music and that sort of thing. But like, Isaac will be taught by charismatic people and Methodist people and Baptist and Presbyterian and like those. Go ahead.
Okay. So obviously I brought you on because I want to talk about discipleship. When it comes to discipling Isaac, how does that has that ever struck fear in you of, well, he's not being raised strictly Reformed, even though like you're still like y'all have a large voice at your house and at your church, but him being at a school where he can be influenced by different denominations, did that ever strike fear of like, oh God, what if he becomes a Methodist? Or,
I mean, God forbid. So no, I can't say that I've necessarily put a whole lot of thought into. Things look a little bit different because he's so young, and so some of the conversations that get engaged in they don't get real denominationally specific in elementary, you know? Now, as he gets older and he's more conscious of the fact that this teacher is a part of a different church, like one of the things that I want him to be able to do is actually go ask them and be like, why do you go to this church? Why does your church practice this? Like, and at least in theory and in this moment, it doesn't make me fearful to think about him engaging with other Christians, because really when people ask me like overall goals that I have for all of the kids at the school, it's not that they would be Reformed Baptist or any denomination, is that they would love God and that they would love His Word. Obviously, another facet of that, they would love people. But like a priority of loving God and loving His Word. That Latin phrase "coram Deo," which means before the Lord. Before the face of God. Like that's
Me and Mike, because he was telling me about the Perimeter Baptist Ministry called Coram Deo.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but
that explained what the name actually meant.
Yeah. You guys didn't get into that.
I didn't even know how to really pronounce it.
Yeah.
And he pronounced it a very different way than I did.
Yeah.
But I was just like, what is this?
Yeah. Yeah. It's before the face of God. All of life is before the face of God. If Isaac grows up, and I say this right now, it's easy for me to say this in theory, okay? If Isaac grows up and if he's plugged into a charismatic church, but he loves the Lord, that should be okay with me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we can disagree. Like if he knows the Lord, I think that's probably the number one priority for me. I think about all of these, like J.C. Ryle, for instance. It was either his son or his grandson, like, abandoned the faith. You think about Francis Schaeffer, 20th century philosopher and theologian. His son, apostatized, essentially. You see that a lot, and in some ways I feel like that has caused me to take a step back and be like, obviously I pray that the Lord would save my children, but it's like, help me to like hold forth for them like the right things, like it's just like if he, when he begins like being interested in girls and stuff like that, like the things that I'm not going to be concerned about, I'm not going to be concerned about the color of her skin. I'm not going to be concerned about, in some ways at least, the church that they're a part of. If there are churches that I would be concerned for my boy to be a part of, if that makes sense. But like, man, am I able to discern that they love the Lord? Like, that's what I want for my boy, is to marry. I want him to love the Lord, and I want him to marry a woman who loves the Lord. Yeah, you can build from that.
Yeah, that's been the challenge of like breaking out of the Reformed tribe. Is I feel like God was putting people in my life who weren't Reformed and showing me that Miss Morgan loves Jesus, but she believes women can be pastors. And me having to come to terms with like, she lives every day trying to honor God in everything she does, and she does it really well. I need to take a step back and just be like, oh, maybe that's a secondary issue.
You want some more of that?
I would love some more. Thank you.
Thank you, Ash.
And same with like, it's forced me to even see how God is working in people's lives who aren't even Christians. And some people would struggle with this, but like me having friends who are gay or trans or whatever, me being able to step into those relationships and realize how big my God is, and be like, you may not know that God's working in your life, but I know he's somewhere in here. So I'm gonna sit down and get coffee with you, and I want to hear your story, because I want to see where he's at in this. And it's like then this beautiful thing of like, you start seeing God pop up in people's lives, and those people don't even believe in God. And it just makes you more thankful and like easier to be around too, but like way more thankful for the people in your life, and able to have those conversations and work with them wherever they are at. Of like, something that I had to come to terms with was and Justin Bieber helped me do this, of I used to look at Justin Bieber and judge him because he went to Hillsong, and be like, oh, you're not in the right church. You don't have the right understanding of God and all this stuff. But then hearing him on Zach Sing's radio show and explain the gospel better than David Platt, and I was just like, frick. And it was just this moment of, he started at a different place than me. I grew up in church, and I didn't have all the same struggles. I feel like, which I'm not really a part of a tribe anymore, but the groups that I tend to be a part of, I think they tend to be more what I think is biblical. I was blessed by growing up with a family and a church who raised me in that environment. But not everyone is raised in a church environment like that. Not everyone is raised with parents who are like, you need to only date Christians because that's where the biggest values in your life lie. A lot of people didn't grow up like that, so they make choices that are different than yours because they were never taught that. And so then I don't know, it's also just made me like understand the importance of discipleship and how there's no like clear path on how to do it. Because like when you discipled me, I grew up in the same church you did. Our families are very closely united on a lot of things. And so I remember a lot of the conversations we had early on was you just trying to get me to answer the question of like, you knew I had the answer or knew the answer. It was just, Austin, can you tell me the answer? Whereas with other kids that you discipled over the years, or like I've discipled over the years, they didn't grow up in church at all, and so it's like, no, I need to just like introduce you to the answers.
You know, it's funny because like, ever since you asked me to have this conversation with you, like it's interesting to me to think through things that stick out to people versus things that like you don't remember, you know. And I mean, obviously, like it's crazy to think about because I mean, me being on staff at that church is almost 10 years ago, you know. Me spending a lot of time discipling you as a teenager is 10 years ago. It's 11 years ago, you know. And so like, I mean, I remember we would get together a lot, you know. And so like when you have that sort of frequency with someone, like there are a lot of things that don't stick out because so much of it felt routine. You know what I mean? It's just like normal course of life. Like it's Tuesday, Austin's going to come over after school. Like
Tuesday changed my life multiple times.
And so like I've been trying to like rack my brain of like what conversations did we even have, you know, because like I can't sit here and say that I didn't have like a plan, you know what I mean? Like, and I know that seems weird, like I didn't have this like to put it in school terms, long-term curriculum that I was planning to take you through, you know. It was just like,
I would have assumed you did.
I mean, so I remember doing something connected to a David Platt study.
Radical.
Okay.
You copied it out of the book.
So you're telling everybody that I committed copyright infringement. So
absolutely.
So
it's the church, they forgive you.
That's it. I remember you would come over to my house frequently.
We went through the book of James.
Okay. What I mean, so I'm still trying to like think through like what are some of the studies that we did. I do remember there came a point where you were really, really interested in, somehow you had found out that I was at least inclined to Reformed theology.
I seen the book on your shelf.
It was it The Joy of Calvinism? Or
I don't even remember what it was. I just remembered seeing the word Calvinism, and it was on the bookshelf. The little TV stand y'all had. I remember just pointing at it, being like, "What is that?"
And I
Because
remember
it wasn't a religion I'd ever heard of.
right.
And then you're like, well, Lecrae's a Calvinist.
Yeah.
All your favorite rappers are Calvinists.
Yeah.
And you start going through the list, and I was like, oh, I love those guys.
Yeah.
They're cool.
Yeah.
Calvinism's cool.
Yeah.
But then that just being a very long journey after that of being like, I don't know if Calvinism is as cool.
Yeah. It's like Kobe might be a heretic.
Yeah.
I remember having a season of conversations about that where, and if I'm looking back on it, obviously I held to those things. I would like to think that I typically didn't try to like say you have to be this way, you have to be a Calvinist or
Not at all.
like that.
I think that's probably one of the misconceptions people have. They still have,
Mm-hmm.
which pisses me off, is they assume that whatever Kobe said, Austin diehard believed and
Right.
went and followed, and like I
Right.
was the little baby.
Mhm.
Yeah. But that wasn't it at all.
Mhm.
I constantly disagreed with you.
Mhm. Yeah.
There was a time where I was like, no, Kobe's dead wrong about this Calvinism thing.
Yeah.
John 3:16 proves it.
Yeah.
And posting that on Facebook.
I remember,
And,
those times. Yeah.
And you never pushed Calvinism on any of us
Yeah.
in the youth group.
Yeah.
And I was the closest one, so if you were going to push it on anyone, it would have been me. But you were actually
Yeah.
very cautious, and you didn't really talk about it that much.
Right.
Until I got older.
Yeah.
And then, if I'm right too, you asked my parents if it was okay to
Yeah.
talk to me about that stuff.
Yeah. I was standing under the awning at the church there,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like talking to your dad. I'm like, he's got a lot of questions about this stuff, and I'm like, I was like, this is not the most important thing, you know.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to make sure that he was okay, like if those conversations came up, you know.
And I can't. That's something else I can't shake though. Is what you did prioritize early on, and I think that Radical by David Platt study is like. I've tried to use that again.
Mm.
It doesn't work quite as well, but
Mm.
the understanding grace and mercy were the two big things that like really sunk in. And I
Mhm.
think that's part of why it was. Calvinism would end up making a lot of sense to me. Is you really made sure. Granted, I was a church kid who thought that I was saved already,
Right.
and you taking me through the Book of James and being like, "Well, you can believe but not be saved," rattled me.
Mm.
I was like, "Okay, well, it's nothing I'm doing.
Mm.
I need to like rethink all this." And
Mm.
you just instilled like very core Christian principles that all Christians believe into me, and that just in my own mind caused me to think through limited atonement and
Mm.
irresistible grace and all that stuff.
Mm.
It was never Kobe pushing me.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You never even took me through a book on Calvinism.
Mm-mm.
You took me through Explicit Gospel by Matt Chandler,
Yeah. Okay, I remember that
which
one
is
now.
just the
Mhm.
very basic gospel.
Yeah. 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 A lot of Acts 29 stuff.
Mhm.
You know. Yeah. I think. What's funny is like. I assumed in a lot of ways that like walking with somebody relationally through their faith was like the assumption of like this is how discipleship looks like.
Yeah.
Like we're gonna know each other, we're gonna have a friendship, you know, and like I'm just gonna. I think if I were to say that I had like a goal when I think about our time, you know, through when you were in high school, it's just like we're gonna spend time together, and I'm gonna make sure that like we're trying to study something together, or we're trying to like at least make part of our hanging out like purposeful and talk about the Lord or talk about something serious. And I'm sure there were times when we didn't explicitly talk about the Lord, and like I still think that's okay. Like,
Yeah.
that's good. That's a part of life, like life together.
You introduced me to Skate 3 and showed me how to beat people with skateboards, which was life-changing, too.
Yeah, that was,
Because I wasn't allowed to play violent video games.
Yeah, and that's what my training at Liberty University, it's exposed kids to, violent video games. It's just like, in a lot of ways, I'm like, I can't believe I get, I'm getting paid to work with students, and it's just like, all right, I'm gonna dig in, and there were students who, they were kind and all of that, but they weren't interested, and then, there's, few and far between, but like students like you that's like, no, this is what I'm looking for. Yeah. And I think that's an element of all of this as well, is like, I think discipleship is not, there's a facet of it where it's like mentoree, or like more mature person, less mature person, but like it's absolutely reciprocal as well, and like the fact that you wanted to engage with the conversations, you wanted to study together, like if you would have been stiff-arming me the whole way, like I can't be dragging you around like wanting, it's just like with kids at school, I'm like, I can't want this more than you want this. Like you've got to bring some stuff to the table, and so
did you feel like it was tough at first though? Because I remember sitting on your little porch, and you'd ask me questions, and it's like I knew answers. It was just I wasn't confident in my answers, so I wouldn't say anything. And you just being like, "Well, wait."
Yeah.
And like over time, I became more comfortable.
Yeah.
Giving answers, but
it
was definitely probably a struggle at first, right?
I mean, I'm sure there were awkward moments, and I'm sure there were times where like we walked away from each other, and you're like, that was awkward, and I'm walking away, and I'm like, I'm not getting anywhere with this person, like. But I felt like I had realistic expectations about like a relationship takes time, it takes time to build trust, it takes time for people to be comfortable around one another and like be, frustrated, I mean, you talk about like Kobe's wrong about this, Facebook warrior, like there was a time when that wouldn't have been a part of what you would have done, like you weren't comfortable articulating things like that, nor would you have been comfortable like communicating something like that to me, just because there's no relationship there. Yeah. Versus when you get real comfortable and like friends can just be like, I disagree with you really intensely. Yeah. Like, and I even remember those times, like I never like took offense to that. I'm just like, do your thing, like it's we can agree to disagree. A lot of what was helping me in that as well was during the season of my life, my closest adult friend was a Methodist minister. Yeah. And we disagreed about everything, but I love Paul Jones, and we would spend a lot of time together. And like, I think a lot of what I would end up trying to do with like students and people that I was investing in would be like just mimic in some ways the friendship that I had with Paul, where it's just like just gonna have like some real conversations, and like it was messy, but it was like those were some of the best years of my life, as it relates to just like full friendships. And
can I ask you about because you also got pushback. You're like, I don't want to get into too much of the details. It's fine. You took over the youth from a guy who was very flashy. They're like giveaways. Y'all's personalities are very different. Yeah. And your style of teaching were very different. And so, like, he's got like 100+ kids coming to youth. Yeah. He leaves. You step in a little later. And the youth group is very smaller. And you're not drawing the same crowd that he was. Yeah. And so people would have like critiques of like, Kobe's killing our youth group. Yeah. Because he's not charismatic and he's not loud and he's doing things differently than how this last guy did. But then I feel like, and this is something I've definitely stolen from you when I teach our youth group, is I think you've seen that as kids or as teenagers, we didn't need the giveaway. We didn't need you to bribe us to come to church and to talk about serious things. I think you actually seen us as like, you have your own thoughts and ideas. You're talking about this stuff at school all the time. You're just, now we're going to intentionally talk about it together and we're going to dive in.
Yeah.
And so like even how you ordered our youth services, it was, we sit around and you have these handouts and we can fill out things, but you're asking questions the entire time.
Yeah.
It's very conversational. But like, that's not, people did look at that, and people still would have looked at teachers like you and be like, you're not doing discipleship right, because it's not. It doesn't have the same drawing power, and it's not producing the same numbers as this guy over here.
Yeah.
What was your thoughts on that whole season?
So I mean, there were definitely times when it was tough. I remember when I started at the church, the walls were painted blood red.
Yeah.
The stage was all black, and even with all of the interests that I have that are a little bit like edgy, I like came in and I'm like, we're painting these walls beige. Yeah. And like we're lightening this place up. And there was a guy that was an artist who was painting a mural for me, and this was a few weeks into working at the church, and he was like, we got to get this place back to what it used to be. And what he was referring to is like hundreds of kids at the church, the way that it was done before. And I didn't really say anything to him. It wasn't like he wasn't trying to be offensive. He wasn't making a knock against me at all, but like I knew even from that moment, like that the priorities that I had, and
I think people assume that's the only way to do ministry.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's like 17 different things that I want to say as I continue to think about this. Like something that's an important qualifier to make is that like some of the books that I was reading, like I look back on my time in youth ministry, and I would say that there are certain ways in which I could have made it more cohesive to youth culture in some way. Like it's not wrong to have a game. It's not wrong to play in fun things. Like, so I think I would have, if I go back, which I have no intention of ever working in youth ministry again, but like if I were to take experience that I have now, and especially interacting with kids at the school, and take it back to that, I would have structured our time studying scripture the same, but been ratcheted up a little bit in the realm of like, all right, on Sunday we're diving into the Word, but like Friday we're going here, there, and the other place to have fun. Like really being more structured in that. I was reading some books that were really beneficial, but were definitely put me in an extreme spot in some ways. The first book that I read when I started at Southside was by John MacArthur, and it was called Ashamed of the Gospel. And it's a really good book, but it's a sharp critique of like seeker-sensitive type of movements. And I finished that book, and I thought that we probably shouldn't have electricity at the church because it's a modern advancement that is distracting us from the gospel. And so like I ended up swinging a little bit harder to an opposite side, where I'm like, okay, I grew up in a scenario where the fog machine is going, the lights have been dimmed, the environment has been cultivated to lend itself to decisions for Christ. Okay. And I reacted to that, and I'm like, we're painting these walls beige. Every light will be on. There is no fog machine. You know, it's like almost like, yeah, it's another extreme.
Yeah.
You know, and so like, I was processing a lot in time. You know, trying to work things out. I think as time went on, I started to get into a better rhythm. I started to do things that I think were really good practices. Like toward the end of my time in youth ministry, I would send the parents my teaching content, you know, broadly with questions, you know, of like, this is how you can engage your student. Because I had become more and more convinced. I'm like, I'm partnering with y'all. I'm not taking your place. Like, you need to disciple your kids, and here's an easy way for you to. I've talked to them about this. You can connect with them and talk to them about this. And I don't know if you remember, I would even tell the students, I'm like, go home and ask your mom about this. Ask your dad about this. So I feel like I started to get into a good rhythm. I started to find that there were kids that were coming who enjoyed the way that I had things set up, because like, I think that the kids that were engaged with it could see that it was like, it was real. You know, like I wasn't trying to put on a front, either as a person or in my ministry. It's just like, hey, this is what we're here to do, you know. And
you really wanted to get in people's lives.
I did, for sure. And you know, there were times when like, there were times when I did feel some pressure of like, well, maybe you should do things this way, but like, I think again, flowing out of that like love for like contrarianism and punk rock music and like being comfortable with like, no, I you know, to use a modern phrase, like I'm in my lane. Like, I think God used that way that I'm wired to help build some resiliency of like, no, this is how I'm going to do things. I think I could have been more self-reflective and worked alongside my leaders of like, what are some ways that we can tweak it, you know. I mean, there was a lot. I mean, you have to remember as well, when I was brought on at the church, I was 20 years old, you know, and when I left, I was 23, you know.
Jeez, okay.
You know, so like, I mean,
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I was a kid, you know, and so like, there's so many things that I look back on, and I'm like, yeah, I was immature, you know, and I didn't have. I was surrounded by people who I respect, but as it relates to having somebody come alongside me and say, all right, it's your first year of ministry. Here are some priorities you need to keep. Here are some safeguards you need to put in place. I didn't have a pastoral mentor. I was brought in and almost immediately treated as a contemporary to these people who have been ministering for decades. And on the one hand, I appreciate that they gave me respect. I really had no business being given the freedom that I had in those years. You know what I mean? Because it's almost like, you know, giving a kid a blank check. You know, it's like, go with it, you know. Yeah. And I'm thankful to God that like it didn't turn into more of a dumpster fire than it did at certain moments, you know. So I know that's like a lot, you know.
That's good.
But
okay, what about your transit, or you becoming a parent and discipling your boys? I feel like, because I work with your dad, for people who don't know, your dad just about every week comes in with another story of, well, this is what Isaac is. Isaac's able to recite some catechism, or your brother Joey, him and his kids, of like, I'm seeing videos of them constantly of them be able to answer questions I still have yet to answer about the faith. You guys are being really intentional about how you raise your boys, which makes sense because you're very intentional about how you did youth ministry. You're just a very intentional guy all the way around. How has it been what's been the learning curve with discipling your boys? Is it? I'm assuming you're like me in that you had an idea of, I know how I'm going to disciple them and how I'm going to bring them up in the way of the Lord.
Yeah.
And then things maybe not go as planned.
Yeah.
What's that been like?
Well, I mean, for me, I feel like a lot of my experience being a parent has been things have not gone as planned, you know? And I always like to quote the theologian, philosopher Mike Tyson, who said that everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I feel like that's what marriage and parenthood has been for me, is like frequent punches to the face, you know, sometimes literally, from Ezra. Like when, so I do need to be clear to, you know, Joey is the one who's real big on the catechisms, you know, because he's a way better person all around than I am. Like, you know, so like,
yeah,
I look at like our kids, and Joey has a real structure, and like, I don't know, it's outside looking in perspective, you know, but that's like, it's easy for me to look at Joey and I'm like, he's freaking killing it. Like, and I think probably for a big part of this just ends up dealing with like personality of children, you know, and like how kids are wired differently, and you know, just there's a lot of things that come into play with that, you know. I look at the way that Joey, at least from the outside looking in, because I mean he lives far away. I don't know, Joey just seems consistent, you know, and I feel like I'm able to like hear Joey's heart a lot, and a lot of times his heart seems to be like, he's an authentic person, and like I think that comes out with his kids, and like I think Joey's really self-reflective of like experiences that we had growing up, and like just how he wants to, the relationship he wants to have with his boys, you know. And so I mean I can't say that I know what every night looks like for Joey and them, you know. Just family dynamics are different, you know. Right. I feel like our family is like a lot of chaos, you know, a lot of farts, you know, a lot of like, I've screwed this up, I need to say sorry, you know. And like,
I remember years ago that when Isaac was little, you, like us sitting at the dinner table for breakfast or something like that, and you walking Isaac, like he was reciting some prayer, or some, I don't remember what
it's probably the doxology.
Yes. So like with all of our kids, that's the mealtime prayer that we've done, and a lot of that is just because I feel like it communicates the heart of prayer before a meal, you know. It's just gratitude, you know. And I always wanted our kids to experience like a continuity between church and home, and we sing the doxology at church, and then they hear us have it at home, sing it at home, and there just being some like overlap there, you know. I think for me, man, when I, you know, going back to your original question about like the process of discipleship, and I think the thing that I have struggled with the most, and the thing that's the most sobering, is that whereas when I was discipling you went home. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I could, if I was not in a good spot, I could put on for you.
Yeah.
Because like, okay, I got to get in the zone. Yeah. I got to get into the zone. I got to do this for an hour, and then, you know, I can go back to being an idiot, or being in a bad mood or whatever.
Yeah.
They see everything, I mean, I'll tell. This is a sort of funny story, but it's a real, like, your kids are watching your example. Kind of. This is as real as it gets. We're driving home from Virginia, all right, and we're on I-95. It's crazy. Okay, Ashley's actually driving. I'm in the passenger seat. The boys are in the back watching a movie on the DVD player or whatever. And there's this idiot behind us, and he is like, we're in the far right lane. We're not even in the left lane. Like, we're not going slow in the fast lane. We're going medium speed in the far right lane. Mm-hmm. And we can't go anywhere, and he's like riding our tail. And I notoriously struggle with road rage. Like, I hate driving. I struggle the most, like, in those areas, And so we finally get to a clearing, and I know he's coming around. All right. And I'm like, all right, I have something for you when you come around, big boy. So he pulls around, and I shoot the bird at him. I mouth some words to him, and I enunciate with my lips so that he can read the exact words that I'm saying to him. Okay. Yeah. And I'm giving him the double bird, son, and he goes about his way,
Yeah.
And I just move on from that. All right, like 2 months later, we're driving through the parking lot in my school, and I see my precious middle school math teacher. She's walking in the parking lot, and I look and I see Isaac, and he's flipping the double bird at my math teacher. I'm dead serious. All right, he's flipping her off. All right, and I turn around in this, like, self-righteous, like, how dare you? You know what I mean? Like, in my best Mark Driscoll impersonation. How would you even know? Like, what are you doing? I mean, I'm crawling him up and down, and I'm like, what is wrong with you? You scum, And he looks at me with the most sincere little face, and he says, when we were coming home from Uncle JoJo's and that car came around, that's what you did to that man. And I was like, I'm an utter failure. Like, I could give you dozens of examples like that, you know? All right. And it all brings to mind this tension that I live with every single day, that, like, and this is especially true, man, when I think about the fact that my sons will see me in a ministry role at the church, and they will see me as Mr. Tomlinson at the school. They know the real me, and they know everything.
Kind of chilling. Yeah.
Oh, it's sobering. It's terrifying.
Yeah.
Because I and this is not necessary. I think it's a spiritual goal, but, like, one of the goals that I have, man, is that I want my boys to be able to see me at school. And when they think about the quote-unquote real me at home, that they see some consistency, and that they don't grow up with this mindset that says, yeah, Daddy puts on the Mr. T or Mr. Tomlinson persona, but when he's at home, he's a jerk, or when he's at home, he's harsh. Like, and I struggle with those things. I struggle with being moody. I struggle with, like, being self-centered, and, like, knowing that my boy is watching me. Yeah. It's scary. It's really scary, because I don't want, you think about Jesus talking about that, and I'm paraphrasing hard, you better not make one of these little ones stumble. You know what I'm talking about?
Be better for your...
Yeah. You'd be drowned. Yeah, it's better for you to drown, know? And I don't know if there's any more place that is more real than in my house, because I've had to say sorry to Isaac a lot. I've had to say sorry to Isaac for ways that I've spoken to him, ways that, I've conducted myself, ways that I've spoken to Ezra. Ezra, like I said, that's Ezra right there.
I love it.
Yeah. Ezra's the one where we butt heads a lot, and I've had some really rough nights with them, and just owning it. I think the biggest thing that I feel like I'm doing consistently, and it doesn't feel good, but I know that it's probably the best thing for me to do. Dude, we struggle with family devotions. Those things are chaotic. I mean, we can get into a rhythm and then we fall out. We get into a rhythm and then we fall out.
Y'all do that like every night? Like Matt, I remember hearing Matt Chandler talk about it. He's like, don't try to do it every night. That is impossible.
Yeah.
Try to once a week.
Yeah.
And don't make it an hour long.
Mm-hmm. No. So we try to do some form of a devotion the majority of the nights of the week, but it's usually 10 minutes. Like just reading something. You know, and we struggle with consistency there. I struggle with consistency just as an individual, and they see that. But something that I know that I'm consistently doing is repenting to my boy, and Isaac's the one that's the most conscious right now, because Ezra, he doesn't understand totally, but I still try to be like, all right, you remember when I yelled at you, and I was angry, like, I'm sorry, and helping Isaac to see me repent to him and telling him, like, Daddy had to say sorry to the Lord.
Like one of the probably the best parts of discipleship, though, and most influential, is you being honest and real when you screw up and like your faults. Of one of the things that has always stuck out to me about our time together was I was struggling with lust really bad, and I was like, I'm thinking I'm the only person who's ever struggled with this. Like, I'm alone, and I'm a terrible person, and I just never had heard anyone else talk about it. And we were at your house, and you asked, is there anything you want me to pray for you about? I was like, no, I'm good. So you like went and used the bathroom or something. When you came back, I was like, actually, I have these, I didn't know to call it lust. It's like, I'm having these thoughts, and they're very inappropriate and sexual, and I don't know what to do with it. I don't want to have them. I know I shouldn't, but then I keep having them. And you being like, yeah, me too. And I just being like, what? And you're like, yeah, I'm a young youth pastor, and a lot of my job is I sit in front of a computer in an office by myself. I'm tempted all the time. And you're like, and I'm married. And I'm tempted. And I remember it being so comforting, because I was like, oh, like, not only is someone else dealing with this, but like this person who's been pouring into me, who I've at that moment was like, you're the expert. You're like getting on my level, and you're like, no, I'm just like you.
I'm screwed up.
And it being so comforting, and like even remembering my parents growing up, of the best moment, the things that made me draw closer to them was the moments where they said sorry. Of me and my dad have had a very rough relationship over the years, because we have very different personalities, but the things that made it really helped make our relationship stronger was him coming into my room and being like, I'm sorry. Like, I screwed up. I shouldn't have done what I did. And I need your forgiveness. And me being like, oh. Like, you see, sometimes we have this idea of Christianity of it's that idea of, like, when it talks about elders in one of the Timothys or whatever, and it's like, you got to be above reproach. Sometimes we take that as people have to think that you're perfect. And they can't have any speculation that you're not the perfect Christian that you're supposed to make it seem like you are. But then that does more damage to the ministry than good. Of when you have that, when you act like something you're not, then when things get exposed, it's the rise and fall of Mars Hill. But then if you're honest throughout your ministry, and you're honest about, hey, I'm trying to follow Jesus, but trying to follow Jesus that's Christianity. It's you being like the disciples, and some days you're like, I want to be at your right hand, and the next day you're like, I'm going to abandon you on the very night you need me most. And it's that constant I don't know, that's just real life.
Mm-hmm.
That's how Jesus shows up in your life the most, is you just being a human and him working with you through that.
Yeah.
And then when other people, you take on these people that you're going to disciple and you show them that,
Mm-hmm.
that's going to do have way more of an impact long term than a lot of times you taking them through
Mm-hmm.
the explicit gospel with Matt Chandler.
Mm-hmm.
If I remember
Mm-hmm.
the general idea of that book,
Yeah.
but I specifically remember you saying, "Me too,"
Mm-hmm.
when I confessed my sin to you.
Yeah.
And I genuinely remember you you just being honest at times and being like, I don't know the answers to your questions.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing how you interacted with your kids,
Mm-hmm.
or coming over and like how you loved your wife. You loved your wife in a way that I didn't know of. You're a very intentional person, and I think I'm a very intentional person. And seeing you do that, and you struggle like you said, but seeing you do that and you keep trying every day, and seeing the type of marriage you have and the type of relationship you have with your kids and the type of pastor you are, it makes me be like, it's okay to be intentional. Like you should be. Like, you're not going to have it all figured out, you're not going to be the expert, but it's okay, because at the end of the day, I think you would agree, like, your life is way better with you trying to follow Jesus than you just giving up.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's I think it's something that we struggle with as Christians throughout all of our lives, and what I'm talking about is like the temptation or the feeling of wanting to project a specific image of like, I've got it, I've got things under control, and we do that with each other. It's real easy to like keep your mouth shut when the time comes for you to share about your struggles, because you're like, I don't want all of this getting out, and that sort of thing. But like, then we can in turn frequently interact with the Lord as if he doesn't see all of the crap that we have tried to sweep under the rug and act like it's not there, you know? So like, the times when I've felt the most healthy spiritually, mentally, physically, like all of that stuff, have been the times when I have been honest with the people that are close with me, and most importantly, honest before the Lord, in the sense of like, okay, Lord, I'm bringing all of this junk. Some of this is self-inflicted, some of this is out of my control, like, resolving to trust the Lord, just, and really just like recognizing my absolute dependence upon him, and like in the power of his Spirit, like seeking to be proactive, even if yesterday was an absolute crap day. Like, okay, God, you've given me a fresh start today. I was listening to a sermon about killing sin the other day, and he was talking about how eternity is the culmination of the pattern of your life and the things that you love, like the pattern of your life and your loves. That's what eternity is. So like, if my entire life is given to the flesh, like, I can't be surprised if eternity is a reflection of that. I'm not saying that I'm not saying that our salvation is based on our works, but if in contrast with that, obviously your life is a striving to fight with your sin and walk before the Lord, to trust him. And he gave this example of like, we know where California is. We can't be surprised if we drive east the entire night and we find ourselves looking at the Atlantic Ocean. Like, but in talking about that, he was talking about how like, okay, if your life is going east and you're intending on going west, man, the fact that you're living, like, God has extended grace to you to like, hey, I need to get off, I need to make a U-turn, and and that day in and day out, I think a lot of times like life can feel like a snowball, and this is kind of going into a different direction than what we've been talking about, but like life can feel so much like a snowball that we can feel as if we're powerless to make a turn, but God's given us, all things that pertain to life and godliness, and new days and fresh starts, man, it's an opportunity to walk before the Lord and say, God, I'm sorry for my sin. Wife, I'm sorry for my, where I've struggled. Sons, I'm sorry for how I messed up. God's given me today, and like not allowing, a lot of my joy has come in not getting so consumed with like the month or the year that I've had, and instead being like, man, like Ash and I were talking this morning, I'm like, how do you feel right now? Like scale of 1 to 5, like what's your level of optimism for today? Like just think about today. Like, man, I want to honor the Lord today, okay? And then I want to build off of that momentum today and go into tomorrow and be like, man, God bless me with an imperfect day, a day where I still had to repent, but like, man, God blessed me with a good day yesterday. Like, let's take that snowball and like, man, honor the Lord today. Just kind of a moment by moment.
Kind of reminds me of that idea of I listen to a lot of John Mark Comer these days, and he spends a lot of time talking about the difference between the spirit and the flesh, and how the more you feed the flesh, again, it's like what you said of, don't be surprised then when you start acting fleshy.
Yeah.
And but how the spirit, and Robbie says this a lot, of sometimes we have this idea of we're feeling impatient, and so we think that we have to pray to God, like, God, give me patience. When God gave you the spirit of patience, and it's just, are you going to use it? And then John Mark Comer would come in and be like, are you exercising it? Of like, it's a muscle.
Yeah.
Are you actively like trying to build that muscle up and strengthen it?
Yeah.
And the more you pour into the spirit, the more the spirit's going to come out of you, because you're feeding it. Yeah. But the more you pour into the flesh, the more you're going to be falling into sin and being selfish and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But that's like another part of discipleship that I think, that I've been like wrestling with more the last couple of years, is that whole idea of the spirit and the flesh, of you're walking someone through how to do the life Jesus has set forth. Of, he had a very specific way of doing life, and when you look at Jesus' life, there's a lot of spiritual discipline he has in place. It wasn't just he goes to church and he listens to a sermon on Sunday. It was, he practices Sabbath. He intentionally leaves the crowd and goes and prays with the Father alone. And a lot of those like old desert father monastic traditions, I feel like tapped into that. Of, they're really serious about like contemplation and meditation and rest and confession, and that like sometimes it's even in. I think sometimes they took it a little too far, but like I love that story of like the desert fathers, of the dude. He was walking through the desert and he's seen a pretty woman, and he's like, "You're a demon," and because he was lusting, he's like, "You're the demon of lust," and he just books it the other way. Of, he took the idea of fleeing from sin literal, and there's like commentary on that, but I think it's interesting how like the desert fathers specifically, they were looking at how Jesus lived his life, and they took it serious of like, well, if we're going to be followers of Jesus, if we're going to do life the way he did it, then let's try to shape our entire lives around it. And there's parts they failed at, but some of the things that they did really great at is things that I think like in our Western culture, in church culture, we kind of forgot of. We think it's very legalistic to have spiritual disciplines in place, but part of discipleship is, you like, when you taught me how to read my Bible, you walking me through of like, I think we did like a Philippians study once that you kind of came up on your own, and you went through the questions of who's the author, what's the context, and you made me think through these things. Of, you're helping me take on the spiritual discipline of studying my Bible. Of, you I think at Southside, you took the church through this thing of how to do like how to pray.
Mm-hmm.
That was very like intentional and just very specific, but it was like very honoring. And but part of discipleship is helping new Christians, specifically, like all Christians though, understand how to actually implement the life Jesus has for them. And if you're going to actually try to lead someone to follow Jesus, you need to hammer home some of those spiritual disciplines, not as a way of earning your salvation, but it's like, no, Jesus did it. Like, why would we not do it?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's, and I don't know where all of it came from. I mean, it's kind of a variety of, definitely a variety of influences. Like Joey, I remember when I went into high school, like that's kind of when it seemed like the Lord was really dealing with a lot within me. And so there was a guy who bought me this Bible when I was in the 8th grade called the Surfer's Bible. And it literally had like dude in it, you know, like it was not a literal translation. But that Bible helped me like begin to really get into reading scripture. And then Joey bought me an ESV study Bible, like a good Calvinist. And like I had some people that were really starting to hammer to me like scripture intake, like, and they weren't using language of like spiritual disciplines. I didn't know who Donald Whitney was at this point, or you know, but there were certain practices that started getting held up before me that was far more, it was like routine versus like a lot of the experience that I had in youth group was go to youth camp, experience a spiritual high, ride that wave for a couple of weeks, go back into mediocrity. You know? And like moving away from like living this life, going from emotional high to emotional high, or emotional high to emotional low, to like there's a lot of theologians who've talked about this, but like the grace of normalcy, you know, the grace of just like, man, the day in day out grind of like, this is how God communicates his grace to us, is like through the routine, you know, the seemingly unremarkable, you know. And so I think when I started meeting with you and any student that I would meet with, it's like, man, the most important thing that they can have as a foundation is like, man, the word is central, you know. And I think I used to put things in, I'd be like, okay, we're going to approach this passage theologically, we're going to approach this passage biographically, and what does it teach me about God, what does it teach me about myself, like just trying to ask questions that are flowing from the text, you know. And a lot of that kind of made sense to me. It's like, man, if we're going to be about the Bible, let's, you know. And I think that's why I loved like Driscoll and like a lot of those more reformed guys, because it's like seemed like the word was placed at the focal point, you know. And that was always the best part for me. And, you know, you know, you've got dry seasons, you've got times where you're just like you feel like you're punching a clock, you know. But like a lot of the Christian life is, you know, it's just like with my kids, man. It's like I might could tell you 2 conversations in the last 8 months that I've had with Isaac where I felt like something was clicking for him. But there's plenty that's going on within those 8 months that God's using, you know, that I might not be privy to, or I might have felt like it was a total flop, and God's doing something through it, you know. And so like, you know, intentionality is, I want to be intentional, you know. I struggle with laziness, you know. I think everybody does,
for sure.
And so just not growing cold in the midst of like my struggle with, you know, I would rather turn my brain off and watch, this TV show than like have this active conversation with my kids or with my wife. And
that's we it reminds me of, I've said it on the podcast before, but like that Jordan Peterson idea of I think he said it in his book Beyond Order, maybe, of what type of life do you want, and then work backwards. It's a very like basic idea, but like it's helped me a lot of, I want to live a life like Jesus did. And Jordan Peterson's advice, John McCormick's advice would be like, well, then take note of what he did. And it was something like I started doing. I need to do it again as I'm reading the Gospels, highlighting Jesus. He was resting. Jesus intentionally was at the temple. He was eating with others and like taking notes of those little things that they're like little one-liners that get put in the story of like him feeding the 5,000, and we missed that one line that's like could really transform our lives. And I think it was interesting though, you pointed out the spiritual high thing of like you jumping from spiritual high to spiritual high. And I think because the bridge, we can probably fall into that trap sometimes of we're not a very traditional church. We're not really big on spiritual disciplines. Hopefully we get more into that space, but we can definitely find ourselves going from spiritual high to spiritual high, and I would hope that as time goes on, we embrace this idea that Jesus wants every day of your life, and that it's that idea like Jefferson Bethke has of scripture is full of rhythms of a lot of the festivals and the feasts and stuff that they had were these yearly rhythms that they would go through that caused them to remember back to Yahweh, and Sabbath being like the one that happens every week of it's a hard reset of intentionally look back at what Yahweh's done in your life, and in the week going forward structure the rest of the week kind of aiming to honor God with everything you do. And then say you screw up that week, you have Sabbath to force yourself to kind of come back to that realization of, oh, this is what my goal is to be more like Jesus. So let's go into the next week like that. And but part of discipleship of like, even if you're not, even if you don't have someone purposefully sitting down with you every week saying this is what you do, this is how you live the Christian life, you can do that self-reflection yourself and say, well, I want to live a life that honors God, and I want to live like Jesus did. Well, let me start putting things in my schedule. I think that's sometimes probably hard for some people because they're like, my personality type's not the type that schedules. But I think back to when me and you started meeting, of people assume I love reading books, and I hate reading books. I didn't read books before we met. But you helped put that discipline into my life. And so now it's the discipline that's in my life whether I like it or not. And the longer I've done it, the more I see the benefits of it. I think that's just the tension of life, right? Of there's going to be things you need to do that you don't want to do, and maybe your personality type doesn't make it as easy to do it, but you do it because the outcome is better.
And this can be where I can definitely begin to lean into my like, be a man, like, toughen up, but like sometimes I can groan inwardly like give me a break when people are like, I'm just not the planning type, and I'm like, well, that's why your life sucks. It's like it's like
no one starts out being a planner. We all start off like as babies who don't plan anything.
Yeah.
We just do whatever we want, and we develop as kids doing whatever we want.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
like, we don't naturally brush our teeth.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we know we need to.
Yeah.
And so we start brushing our teeth whether we like it or not, whether
Yeah.
it's natural or not.
Yeah. I think people who, everybody struggles with priorities,
Yeah.
you know? But like there are certain things every day that I have to do.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Some of those things I don't want to do. Some of those things are things that are not enjoyable in the moment, but they're beneficial for me in the long run. And there are days when I am a total piece of crap, like, and I don't do the things that I need to do, you know. But like, I would say, you know, and this broadens things beyond like discipleship. It begins to look at like why people find themselves in the states that they're in,
Mm-hmm.
like people struggling with anxiety and with depression, and you know, all even physical ailments,
Yeah.
like all of these things. Like,
You listen to NF every day. Don't be shocked if you're depressed.
yeah, exactly. Like, dude, I get it. Your life is hard. Like,
Yeah.
you
4
know,
albums in, he still hasn't gotten therapy.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, exactly. There is a he is not a Christian, and I am not necessarily suggesting that people listen to this guy, but there's this speaker. His name's David Goggins. Have you ever heard of David Goggins?
Yeah, I've quoted him.
Okay.
Yeah, I love him.
So one of my favorite videos of his, now it has a lot of cussing in it, but
Yeah.
one of my favorite videos of his is he's running like he always is, and he's talking about the internal voice and tells you that you're tired and that life is hard and that, you know, all of this is going on. He's like, I decided to start recording myself, and you know, he said that internal voice, you know, he says a different word, but he says he's a punk. Yeah, I love that video.
Yeah.
That video, I play that video in my head frequently.
Same.
Like, and even though he's not a Christian, there are spiritual benefits to the things that he's saying in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of times Christians, like, we wallow. Like, it's like, woe is me, and you know, this is hard and that is hard, and like, whether we're quoting Goggins or we're quoting Jordan Peterson, who says you need to clean your room, like, it's good for you to say, okay, I'm not enslaved to the way that I feel.
Yeah.
I'm not a captive to this, that, or the other. Like, God's given me what I need, okay? And today I'm going to wake up, and whether it's first thing in the morning or I have more flexibility later in the afternoon, like, I know I'm going to have some time
Mm-hmm.
where I can say, I'm going to do what I want. And in the midst of that freedom, you have to say, even if I want to be lazy, like, there's some things that I need to do. Like, I need to read my Bible. I need to meditate on the Word and fill my mind and my heart with Scripture. I need to pray. I need to be alone a little bit, you know. And I would say, while that there are scenarios where people need medicine and they need to go to the doctor and they have all of these things, like, man, a lot of the reason that we feel as bad as we do is because we just stay in that pit. You know, we stay, like Psalm 40 talks about the pit of destruction, and the Hebrew for pit of destruction is actually pit of noise, you know. And I've lived my life. There have been times in the last 2 years where I'm like, I'm in that pit of noise. And here's another reference for you. Andy Mineo, in his song Clarity, says, what if this cloud that I've been stuck in, I construct it, I conduct it.
Yep.
And I'm like, oof.
I listened to that yesterday.
Yeah, that is, God has used that song in my life frequently, because there's a lot of times, man, where I feel like I'm in a pit of noise, and it's because I've put myself there, and it's because I've chosen to be lazy. I've chosen to not take responsibility. I've chosen not to prioritize the right things, you know. And man, that's where Satan wants you. You know, he wants you to wallow. He wants you to, you know, oh, woe is me, I'm tired. I got a lot of responsibilities. Yeah, I'm freaking tired, man. I got 3 kids, and you know, I got a lot of stuff going on.
But that's what one of Matt Chandler's sermons that always stick in my mind is him talking to men, and he's like, he paints this picture of he's calling men to action, and he's like, well, instead of going home after like a long day's work, and vegging out and just watching TV and letting your wife do all the chores and take care of the kids and all that stuff. How about you pull into your driveway when you're really exhausted?
Yeah.
Say a prayer and say, God, I really need strength and help.
Yeah.
Go in there and start washing the dishes for your wife.
Right.
And then go to your kids and play with them for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then tuck them in at night and let them know that they're loved by God.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, and then go to bed tired, because that's what you should be doing.
Yeah.
You should be going to bed exhausted.
Yeah.
And that's I kind of embrace this idea, and sometimes I get worried that I'm like making it sound like prosperity gospelish.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Jesus offers a better way of doing life, and sometimes how we pitch Christianity to people is like, it's a worse way of doing life, is he's taking all the fun out of it. But when you actually stop being enslaved to the mindset of the world of the laziness and the apathy and the chaos and all that stuff, and you take on the life of Jesus and you do that hard work, it actually sets you free, and life is way better, because it's like when you're not enslaved to all the desires in your body, and you take control. But then when you're finding yourself having desires for someone who's not your wife, you'll have that strength to be like, yeah, well, I'm not going to entertain that. I'm going to tap into the Spirit, and I'm going to have that long-lasting, healthy marriage.
Yeah.
Which is better than the alternative.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a misconception that is sold and embraced by our culture that even as Christians we can struggle with, and it is that freedom is found in lawlessness.
Yeah.
You know, or that freedom is found in doing. Freedom means I do what I want.
Yeah.
And that's not true.
Not at all.
The way of the blessed man, in Psalm 1, the way of true happiness that Jesus paints in the Sermon on the Mount, it's found in submission to the Lord.
Yeah.
And people who have done whatever they want, all of us have embraced that. They know the despair that comes from that, and the snowball-like problems that come from living your life disconnected from the Lord and His Word, and then if you're a Christian, you know the joy, taste and see that the Lord is good. You know the joy that comes from fighting with your sin, of submission to His Lordship. I always try to tell the students at the school when I interact with them about God's law, it's like God's law is not written because God hates fun. God made you. God knows all things. And there's a lot of reasons to say that fidelity in marriage is better, but you look at the people who fell into sexual sin in Scripture, it never turns out good for them.
Yeah.
You look at the times when polygamy takes place in the Bible. The Bible doesn't paint a picture of polygamy as like, this is a possible option that would be, no, it's terrible.
Yeah.
It's Solomon's life was a wreck, versus the picture of marriage that you find in Scripture, the ideal of marriage and all of its difficulty, like the pursuit of that, man, that is better. Life, like you were saying, man, life, the life of the Christian is not a life of misery, even though there's affliction and even though there's hardship.
But you can find joy in the pains of the world.
Yeah.
Of going through, kind of the switch that happened for me is we had this little girl who had cancer at our church, and the question I'd wrestle with is that's cool. The question wrestling with is why does God allow this little girl to have cancer? Why would He plan for something like that to happen?
Yeah.
Why does He let evil happen?
Yeah.
But then it's understanding the story of the Bible and being like, he's not on evil side, which is often kind of what we unintentionally believe.
Yeah.
He's actively, he hates evil more than we do. He hates sin more than we do. He hates the cancer more than we do. And he's actually fighting it more than we do. And what's so powerful to me about like Matthew, the end of Matthew 4, is part of the gospel, the kingdom coming in is like Jesus is coming into these people's lives they're broken, they're poor, they're widows, orphans, sick. And they're not asking the question of, well, why does a good God allow evil in the world? They're like, because there's a good God, I have hope in this evil world. Yeah. That's the good news, is in this evil world, there's this good God, and he's actually doing something about it. And sometimes it's like, we're asking the wrong questions.
Oh, yeah, for sure.